Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Um, Lionel MGTOW has stated what has been stated before, but he repeats it wisely. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. And uh, the funny thing is that Arabs also have a similar saying, and I can't remember its literal translation, but the idea is the same, that it's much easier to prevent a problem than it is to fix it after it's begun. In certain parts of Nigeria, different languages, they say that the day of the flood is too late to build bridges and dams. I think that they say the day of the flood is too late to build bridges. Um, and that's very valid. Yeah, that's valid. You don't build a bridge during the flood, and you don't build a bridge that a flood can easily wash away either. You build a bridge when you don't really have a reason to, because you know that the reason to build it is coming. And once the reason comes, you can't build it. So I'm going to tell you a prevention to the issues that many of you are facing, a prevention to what Shannon Sharpe is facing, a prevention to what Jonathan Majors faced, a prevention to what Brian Banks faced. I'm going to tell you guys a prevention as best I possibly can so that we can never completely eliminate what these guys are facing, but we can drastically cut down on it. And how does that help us? Well, let's say that this is drastically cut down. Then when it still happens to some guy that did not provoke this, the rest of us will be in a position to chip in a little bit. You know, the way that I'll ask you guys to throw something into my Cash App. And speaking of which, shout out to M. Raymond for doing that. And shout out to Geechee Man for vouching for my Buy Me a Coffee page, the Jet Black Air Lounge. Thank you both from the bottom of my black heart for the depths of my black mind. You know, I'll ask you guys to each chip in just a bit. And it's because it's easier for you. Plus, easier for me. I'm not sure that I want to earn an extra 4,900 US dollars a month. I mean, that sounds like it would be nice, but not right now. I don't want that now. Um, Tell you guys what, if for whatever drastically unrealistic reason I wound up losing my job as a teacher, then I'll go ahead and say, okay, all right, could all of y'all just send in $1 because I'm going into this full time? Then I would do that. But, honestly, guys, no, honestly, I would rather avoid that at this point. Just those of you that listen, yeah, that's fine. It's not going to put me in too much trouble or anything. I want you guys, though, to think about this prevention. Now, there is a depiction in movies and TV series lately in which guys who are supermen about everything else in their life do not make the first moves with women. And Legion of Men talked about this, but Legion of Men is not my teacher. Um, I watched the video in which he talked about this because someone else talked about it and he was reacting to the video. And I wanted to see, well, since I don't watch a whole lot of movies, I mean, hell, I can't even watch Sinners here because it's only available at 12 o'clock at night in the theaters. And I certainly don't have time to watch a lot of series. So what does that mean for me? Well, what that means for me is, okay, since I don't have time to watch them, I'm probably not going to get to watch them. So the next thing is going to happen is that um, I'm going to have to get what happens from other people. I'm going to find out from other people what happens in these series. And so, therefore, in order to find out these things, sometimes people put out videos and I listen and see what they say. And it turned out that, yeah, they were able to trace how it was that from the 2000s until now, the male leads of these uh, male fantasy movies and series don't make the first moves on women. And they really respect women's boundaries, no matter how big, bad, and alpha they are in every other situation. And that's something that, in actuality, is a good thing for men to do when it comes to male chastity. Yeah, you a dude. You make all the decisions proactively that you know enough about to make proactively in your life. Now, when you don't know, you don't know. But when you know enough, you make proactive decisions in your life. And then when it comes down to these women, you don't make the first moves anymore because it's already been shown, especially in the West. You don't do it because you have to bring so much value that you'd be stupid to do it. You're selling yourself short for making the first move. Look at the value you have to bring in the West. You got to be super alpha. And if you're black, you got to be super alpha, buck Negro, John Henry, black Superman. You got to be Blackula at night and a Kryptonian John Henry in the daytime. Ain't enough to make these broads happy. And that same sister that's so hard on you is so easy on the guy that his own women call weaker than every other man on the planet. And that's Karen, Becky, and Amber. And she's hardest on her own man who's done all this stuff to conquer the world to have more to give to her. And an Asian woman. I mean, when I say Asian, I'm talking about Chinese and Korean and maybe Vietnamese. But you know what? Let's go ahead and throw in the South Asian, the Indian woman. Each of them are hardest on their own men. Ali Wong did to Danny Wong what she would have never done to a white guy. Let's call it for the what it is. Maybe she would have. The funny thing is that, you know, a lot of white guys are like, look, I don't mind a submissive Chinese woman or a submissive Korean woman. I'm okay with that. But I mean, they're not us. I don't think I want to do that. You know, the women don't really mind that preference that the guys have. They like that. They're trying to get around the fact that these men still are going to be looking at this dichotomy these men have to face. I'm talking about the Wyatt men. They have to face this dichotomy. Is the family like super traditional and I'm going to be meeting in-laws that don't even speak English that well? Like the only part of their culture I really want is the submissiveness, the submission to the man. I don't really want anything else. I don't want the New Year's celebrations. I don't want none of that. I don't want to learn the new language. I just want her to submit, do what the hell I said. That's all they want. And I'm looking at them like, yo, y'all need to fuck the shuck up. Really, y'all do after what the hell y'all did to China over some opium wars? But that was the British, it wasn't me. Yeah, okay. Soon as you don't want to be an American anymore, what are you going to start doing? I want to go back to my roots. Yeah, they're already doing that. Roseanne Barr. Anybody. So that's happening. You know, don't that's why I say to you black men, part of this solution that I'm about, well, this prevention I'm about to give you is going to involve not dissing all of the nationalities of black folks, even though we're not to take any crap that they wouldn't take. We're not going out here just categorically dissing all these other nationalities. Here's why. Because the white folk are not going to stop with their unity with each other. They ain't going to do that. As they have their fights and they're not unified, trust you me, the regular run-of-the-mill white folks around you, when they get sick and tired of what it means to be an American under a very aggressive administration, although no administration would have been any better at this point, when they get sick and tired of it, they're going to do like Roseanne Barr. They're going to say, "Yeah, you know what? I'm ready to go back to being an Italian with a redneck drawl." They're going to say that. I'm ready to go back to being a French Canadian or a Frenchman. They'll be sitting in the swamps of Louisiana saying that stuff. Especially if they speak fluent French, they're going to sit back and say, "You know what? I'm ready to go back to being British, to being Irish." Ain't nobody going to be walking around talking about something. No, I'm actually an American, except the original Americans and us. And the original Americans are probably going to get into debates with each other about what to do about us, even though we outnumber them. Because quite a few of these tribes have actually had purges of black members, but not of white members. That's the part that gets me. I'm like, wait a minute, let me get this straight. So you got a problem, you Homer, you Chittimacha, and you got a problem with black members, but you ain't got none with really white looking. You know what? Screw you. Because back during bondage, you would have been one of the main ones trying to help track runaways for the white man, for the massa. We run away from him. You come help them track us down and recatch us. But part of this solution is going to involve us, because it already has. Really, this prevention, it has already involved many nationalities of black people cooperating and getting along and even getting married and having kids. It has happened. It is actually quite common for black folks who have already subscribed to this to do so. I taught at a school in Atlanta, and I would never forget an Eritrean mother married to a Gambian father, and I taught their daughter. I'll never forget a Gambian lady student of mine. Gambian student whose parents went on vacation to Jamaica to see what it was about. They came back and they said, "Man, Jamaica was like home." If they can't go back to the Gambia to live, they would try to live in Jamaica. And now that's probably going to be easier because African and Caribbean countries are more accepting of each other's passports at this point. That's why you got many Africans now, more of them living in Jamaica, and you got many more Jamaicans living on the continent. And not only Jamaicans, but other Caribbeans. However, Jamaicans are leading this. So you got a lot of black folks now on different, both sides of the Atlantic, that are starting to reach out to each other. This is happening. But guess which ones stay together? Because they've been doing this since before it was popular for everybody else. It's the ones who subscribed to the prevention. This is the same prevention that calls for male chastity. Black Guru and Darwin McPherson, both credits and shout out to them for this, have preached male chastity. They said, "Listen, men, don't be out here being reckless with your ding-a-ling. Don't do that." Number one, if all of the women are sitting up here participating in this with you, this recklessness with you right now, who the hell is going to be pure to marry later on? Number two, it ain't like you don't have any value in the first place. It's not like that. Why is it that you think you don't have any value? You're not worth less than she is, let alone worthless. And that's how they depict it. It actually serves these women if you're sitting up here always spending so much energy trying to get your thing wet without marriage. And if you're expending energy and effort trying to get it wet in a marriage, you're doing too much because you already married her. So male chastity is included in this prevention. Male chastity, when done for the right reasons in order to be called male chastity, as well as practical reasons Both of them combined, not just one without the other, but both combined. However, first the moral reasons, just to be fair. When it is done like this, now all of a sudden, nobody can come along and trap Shay Shay. Now all of a sudden, nobody can come along and chase Jonathan Majors, Kang the Conqueror, down the street on several cameras and then still get him in trouble. Properly done, who's going to be able to sit up and falsely accuse Brian Banks because they're ashamed? Because they're embarrassed. Then turn around, file a lawsuit to get a settlement, and then vanish because now that judgment has been reversed and they owe the money back. Now what? They live in fear of the day that somebody is going to recognize them and alert somebody else. This is where these two live. They're working off the books. Come get them. This is what the hell that is. They done spent all that money. Now they right back to, matter of fact, they got less now than what they had before they did all of this. But meanwhile, Brian Banks still lost all that. From 5 years in the clink, he lost the best opportunity he could have had for something he didn't do, for a law he didn't break. But the lack of male chastity was the way that this could happen. And I want you guys to understand that these broads are sitting here banking on you not being chaste as males. And when I say being chaste, I don't just mean, okay, you get married and you don't cheat on. I don't only mean that. I pretty much mean you leave off fornication. You may marry, and I recommend marriage for the young. When I say young, I mean, I would say late teens and early 20s. Yes, late teens. For women, I think it should be college age and later. But for men, yeah, men are mature enough at towards the end of high school. Actually, they just don't have the money. Now, do they act that way? That I don't think they're socialized to now. I don't think they were socialized to when I was growing up. But could they do it if they have the money to take care of stuff? Most of them would do it. Most of them would. They try to be responsible. It takes guidance, and that guidance comes with this prevention I'm talking about. But you do that, yeah. If we make that part of the program, then yes, I think young guys would do it. So in all actuality, I don't really think that younger women are more mature than guys the same age. That's the reason that I don't promote guys going after younger women a lot, especially when you're both young. I don't really promote that because they're not mature. If you're 18, go for the 20-year-old. She can say what the hell she wants. No, she's not more mature than you right off the bat. She wasn't more mature than you at 18 when she was 18. They just say that. They're more manipulative when it comes to men, but hell, we've allowed it. And that's part of the issue that this prevention prevents. I've already said that it's a solution, but it's actually far better as a prevention than it is even as a solution. You think it's effective as a solution. I'm talking those of you who have already subscribed to it think that the solution is very effective as a solution, and you might be right. I agree with you, but think about it as a prevention too. Oh man, now look. I mean, doctors will sit up and sit up. Doctors will tell you, okay, listen, this is what we're going to do. Here's the medicine for your cholesterol. Now cut back on carbs. Now cutting back on carbs could have been the prevention before it was a solution. And you wouldn't have needed medicine. They might say, okay, well, listen, here's what we're going to do. Fruits and vegetables. Mostly vegetables. Let's get you there. And you take that. And so now you got these fruits and vegetables. and your blood pressure goes down. If that actually works, now you don't need blood pressure medicine. Done right from the beginning, it's a prevention. What are you guys getting? You're getting medicines oftentimes, but these women are able to do the things that they're able to do because you are not taking the actual prevention as a large scale. And I'm going to say something about male chastity. I don't promote celibacy, but unfortunately, right now in the West, if you have to live in the West for long term, you're pretty much stuck with celibacy as a safe bet. And that's not necessarily your fault. It's the fault of the men that came before you, simping, trying too goddamn hard in exchange for too goddamn little, and then telling guys that's just the way it is out here. That it can't be no different because that's nature. And then coming to find out that these women to sit up here saying, girl, if these men knew this, that, and the other. You got men out here trying. They trying to get a date, trying to get a wife, trying to get a life together. The whole time this broad wants the commitment any damn way. But she wants you to initiate the commitment she wants. Or, as Manosphere Hall of Fame said, she wants you to initiate the commitment she doesn't want. At least not what you still want you to initiate. And you sit up here doing it. You making all this effort. Meantime, what does she do? I'm going to go to the gym so I can look hot for you. No, she's just going to screw the personal trainer. How many male personal trainers have said, well, I've been a personal trainer. I done ding-a-ling down a bunch of other men's wives. I'm telling you, they should only have female personal trainers. It's a cliche for a reason. I don't know how many times it happens, but it's a cliche because it's a true phenomena. Only question is it 13% of married women with male personal trainers digging them out, or 87% of what? We just don't know the percentage. We know Gisele Bündchen did it. Tom Brady had to have all that money to marry her. The personal trainer only had to be a personal trainer to screw her. All that money she's worth compared to him, but she's screwing him for free and paying him actually on top of that. But Tom Brady has to have enough. He has to have so much more than her to take care of her stank behind. Ninja, what? Before they even broke up, I was like, Tom Brady ain't alpha enough for his woman to fuck the shuck up and do what he said. Damn. Then we come to find out the whole time she just wants him out. She actually said don't play so that he would play, so he'd be out the house so she could cheat with the personal trainer some more. That's what that was about. She told him to stay at home because he wasn't going to. She's trying to cover her tracks, and it still came out. That bitch cheated. Whether you define cheating as just fornicating or you define it as cheating on your spouse when you're married, whatever the case is, she cheated. However you define it. Do I think women are wired for monogamy? By default, I do. Yeah, I think they're also easily corrupted into adultery. I think that's also the case. I don't think they start off wanting to be adulterers because a lot of women here in this society may not like their husbands, but they don't cheat. They know, look, if I cheat on my husband, it doesn't mean I'm going to get the guy with whom I'm cheating to replace my husband because he's going to say, well, you were married to him and you cheated. Now you left him talking about you want to be with me. If you don't like me next week, what you going to do? Because, see, men here are allowed to think before they pair up with a woman in a marriage. They're allowed to think. And as a matter of fact, one of the things they don't do, and these women can't turn around and say, well, I'm going to embarrass you. One of the things they don't do is sit up and say, well, I'm not really going to think about fornicating. It's just fornication. I'm not really going to put much thought into it. They know better than to do that. I mean, the women know better than to try to embarrass these dudes because then it's going to come out, wait a minute, you're confessing you cheated on your husband when you were married to him. You just mad at this dude now because he won't step in and marry you after you left your husband. But you cheated on your husband. Even if he's the one with whom you were cheating, he knows you'll cheat on him. So why would you expect him to marry you? Plus, you just confessed to a capital crime. Now, they don't enforce the capital punishments here anymore. They got a different punishment. But in the Sharia, it's still a capital crime. Cheating on your wife or your husband. And a confession is proof of guilt. You may have to confess 4 times, but once you do, you've proven yourself guilty. And if they go back to the old punishment, you're being stoned. So in a nutshell, guys, this prevention I'm going to tell you, you've already figured it out. This prevention does not call for celibacy, but because you're in a position in which that may be the only safe option if you're stuck living in the West, you're now free from blame if that's what winds up being the case. You're not allowed to sit up and promise God in this prevention that you're going to be celibate the rest of your life. You're not allowed to make that promise. But if it winds up being the case, you're not to blame for it. Because you're not going to be asked on the last day, the day of resurrection. You won't be asked, why did you not fornicate? You may be asked why you did not marry. But if it's not your fault, the answer's already plain. Well, it wasn't my fault. Who out here is relationship material? You see, one of the things that's going to happen is that a lot of women are going to ask, why don't you approach women? And you have every right to sit up and say the truth. Well, there's not a right way to do it, and y'all wanted to be left alone, so you got that. And we're leaving you be because every way to approach you is the wrong way. Well, that's not true. Yeah, it is. It is. Now, maybe if you're handsome and you're in shape, then it's different. If you just have the money she wants you to have, then it's different. But what about when you're just a normal guy and you don't really know how she's going to feel about you anyway till you try? You don't know until you try, and then all of a sudden you're guilty of a crime. Because the very invitation itself, if it's an unwanted invitation, is not merely declined, but it comes with blame. So you all set this up, but by the same token, who the hell is worthy of me making an approach? If you take away the legal and social risk to my job and to my social safety, you remove them, who the hell is worth me making that approach? If I make the approach, what's actually realistically in it for me today in today's market? Marriage or dating? Even though the prevention limits dating to marriage, let's go using the woman's own psychology, her own mindset. Okay, marriage or dating, what is in it for me when I make these approaches? Guess what's in it for you? Not a furthermucking thing. As you already know. And say that to these broads that they're asking. Because the prevention to which I'm pointing you does not demand that the man be the only one to open up discussions about either dating or, to bring up the discussion of dating or marriage. That's not something that is mandated in this prevention. Oh no, women clearly, it is clearly established that women have that right. And since they have that right, and the women of the West demand all of their rights, let them exercise this one. Even in a traditional society, if a woman says, well, I got a right to a dowry, then you sit up and say, you also have a right to bring up the subjects of marriage. Let's see you do it. Let's talk about the dowry after you ask me if I'm willing to marry you. Go ahead and ask the question. I can't do that. Fuck the shuck up then. You picking and choosing. And that's one of the things about rights. You have the right to pick and choose, but you only are picking and choosing that which means I must give. You already set yourself up. Because you see, what you're saying is, I want that money or the dowry, whatever it's going to be, but I don't want to risk rejection. Well, you're still being rejected because I'm now withdrawing my marriage proposal just because of what the hell you showed me. We don't do halfway adulthood around here. And you get up and you walk the uck out on a broad in a marriage discussion and then watch that, especially when she's attractive, watch that news spread. First few guys to do it are probably going to be demonized and vilified by the local women. It ain't your damn fault. But what happens when a bunch of other guys start saying, I'm going to do that too? Let them bring up rights because of a dowry. I have a right to a high dowry. You also have a right to ask me to marry you. Can you bring yourself to do that? You have a right to tell your dad and your brother, listen, I want to discuss marriage with this man. Go talk to him. Do you have a right to tell? Do you have the courage to tell your brother or your dad that even though that's your right? Hell, it's your right. Demand it. Oh, you ain't going to do that. The next guys start saying, okay, well, since you halfway in with your rights, you halfway being an adult, I'm out anyway. So you got the same rejection you didn't want in the first place and would have ducked and dodged. Now you still got that and no dowry. Congratulations. Best of luck finding somebody. Problem is, the one you find that's going to accept that deal is probably not going to be the guy you want. Assalamu alaikum. And you walk the uck out. That's what you do. You say, no. And in the next one, if you're confronted with this type of stupidity, even in a traditional society, what the hell you think that's going to do? See, that's what prevention does. And if men, even in traditional societies a while back, had said, we are going to prevent these notions that we must give and not get in exchange, there wouldn't be this expected dynamic, even in traditional societies today. Oh, yeah, that's there. Even traditional, it's to a certain extent, there's some notion of you going to give that you don't get in exchange. It's not as bad as in the West, but it's there. To give an example, men here may protect a woman that's actually in distress from a threat, but men here are not going to break their back muscles and break their backbones picking up heavy stuff for these women because she doesn't know how to travel lightly. These men ain't going to do that. That's one thing these men are not going to sit up here and do. I've seen it myself. I've seen women that traveling with their kids and without their husband. They got all this baggage and they'll walk up to some man they don't know. Can you help a dude look at that and say, I can't pick up all that? And I love it because you see, if somebody was bothering these women, these men might defend them. So this means that women get to be safe, but they don't get to be stupid. I love that. I'm willing to participate in the same thing. Sure, I'll protect another woman. Now, my wife can't command me to do that. That would be bad for the other woman because then I might fold mom and say, okay, no, I ain't doing that. Yeah, I'm a man, but I'm only your man. I'm not her man. You just ruined it for her. You just messed it up for her because you gave me a command. Don't do that. And I've had talks like that before. You know, my wife's a very good wife. Sometimes I do have to remind, hey, wait. That's a command. Now, how the hell you going to feel about me if I obey your command? Because right now in the moment, you might say, okay, well, I got what I wanted. What happens later when you start thinking and brainstorming like you like to do at times, and you realize I followed your command? Man, the hell with that. This prevention of which I'm teaching you guys, and which I'm telling you guys now, this prevention is something, man. Puts a stop to a lot of this BS. But I'm going to tell you some of the things that this prevention actually does include so that you will understand not only how difficult it sounds, but so that you will also understand, as I've told you before in previous messages, how well you have already carried out a lot of these things anyway without realizing it. It does demand that you give up alcohol. Most of you only drink once a week anyway and don't like it that much. Be honest. Don't front, alcohol smells better than it tastes. That's because it's a better disinfectant than it is something that you ingest, even the ingestible alcohol. It's better as a disinfectant. Yeah, you open up a bottle of whiskey or cognac. Yeah, it smells strong, but it doesn't smell as bad as what it tastes when you take it in. I remember that. I remember remember one of the first times I had a shot of vodka long before I became Muslim. Man, it was like drinking liquid salt. What the walk, man? What are we doing? So when you think about it, you don't really like it that much anyway. And that's why most of you don't drink a lot. There are very few alcoholics amongst the human population anywhere you go. Not that many people are actually alcoholics. They just don't like the idea of not drinking at all. But guess what? You already shown that you can do this for long stretches at a time. Waking up early. Well, we already wake up early for our jobs. So waking up a little bit before the sun comes up for God is not really that difficult. Going to bed early makes it a hell of a lot easier. Another thing, giving up fornication. But you know what? How difficult do they make fornication where you live in the West? Really difficult. It's difficult here because it's fornication. That's why it's difficult over here. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is difficult. It's fornication. It's not easy. Where you live over there in the West, fornication is difficult because it's sex. And that's different. Because even marital sex is different. It's difficult and it's different. You marry and they start saying no, 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 but you still got to provide and protect. I'm saying to you, that's part of the issue right there. And the prevention I'm giving you, it's already encoded. If she doesn't do her part, you don't have a part to do. If she's disobedient, you don't have to provide and protect, let alone if she's like, I'm not going to sleep with you, but you my husband. Bitch, I'm not your husband. The 90-day countdown starts now. You got 90 days. I'm taking care of stuff for another 90 days and we're not screwing. And that's because on the 91st day, I'm done with you. There will be no reconciliation. It's built in. That's the way you want it. So if you do wind up marrying, guess what? You don't get stuck in a deal where you have to perform and they don't, and they're incentivized for breaking the contract. Okay, I want out. You can have out. Here's the deal. You want out because you just don't want to do your part. Number one, you return the dowry. Tell you what, I'll forgo you returning the dowry in exchange for you taking care of yourself these next 90 days, because on the 91st day, you're going to be free. We're not reconciling on the 89th day. That's not happening. Not doing that. That 89th day, it's over. Now, with the end of the 90th day, I think that's the last day. That 91st day is done. Go on ahead. Marry whoever the hell you want to, because it ain't going to be me, because you shouldn't have done this in the first goddamn place. See, in the West, you can't do that. It's more like, okay, now we're about to have a 9-year court battle in the divorce, fighting over all this other stuff. See, gentlemen, if you really want, right now, while you do have voting power, if you really want to change things in a revolutionary manner, I'll tell you what it is that you could best do in order to change these things in that revolutionary manner. The best thing that you could do, honestly, gentlemen, is that if you in fact outnumber the lady voters in your state, you promote a candidate for a Sharpeocracy type government for your state, and y'all turn out and vote for them. Oh yeah, think about that. Now imagine that this then becomes done in the states where you have a large enough black population. Imagine that then. Okay, you know what? Now you already got one single one single legal system already written. You just apply it. You just follow. You ain't got to. You don't have to write it again from scratch. You better not. Actually, it wouldn't work then. It's already written. You just apply it. There are scholars that are already experts in different areas of that type of law, that legal system. You just apply it. Guess what the hell happens? I'm telling you, the family life you do want becomes more stable if you can achieve it and start it. That is the case. You can start looking up and you can start saying, okay, you know what? Now that we have this in place, and since women do in fact have rights in this preventive system, the rights come with responsibilities for anybody, man or woman. Since you have this now, you can turn around and start looking at these ladies, even when they're trying to go by tradition, and you can say, no, no, screw tradition. You got to put religion in front of the tradition because the tradition forbids you from things that are your rights. Don't you want to be able to pick your husband? Go get her, tigress. I mean, go get him, tigress. No, your woman, hear you roar. Go roar out the mating call. Don't play. Ain't no half stepping with this. You're an adult. You're championing this prevention because women have rights in it. Take these rights. Because remember, girl, the rights you don't exercise today are the rights that the men don't respect tomorrow. Go on ahead. Call them on it. And when they start trying to enact these dual mating strategies, yeah, okay, you want to enact a dual mating strategy. The minute that we can genetically prove that that's what the hell you did, have an outside ninja's baby while you were married to your husband and try to pass it off as his, the minute we can genetically prove that, Abdullah, get the rocks. Don't worry. If your husband cheats on you, it's going to be the same thing for him. Abdullah, get the rocks. We finna toast this dude. But he's allowed to marry more than one because there ain't no way you're going to be able to keep up with him. He can marry more than one. That's not cheating, but he has to treat her as equally as he treats you. Oh, you don't like that because that makes her equal. What happens if you have to be the second wife or have nobody at all? Now you get to be treated equally to the first. Oh, you see? You're the one that's not thinking. All of a sudden, this legal system that protects everyone's rights but holds them to their responsibilities will show you that we actually do think when they don't. It'll prove it. It's not that they're not smart. It's not that women aren't intelligent. It's they just simply refuse to think about certain things. In the West, especially. Even in traditional environments, it might be the case. But that's why there's that legal system that comes with this prevention. They refuse to think about certain things. Okay, fine. Well, the ruling is still going to protect your rights and your responsibilities either way. You shall not be abused and bring it to the attention of a court, and it just continues. You shall not be treated inferior to other wives of the same husband, and you bring it to the attention of a court, and it just continues. But you also don't get to sit up here and hold the man to responsibilities, take away his rights, and then get rewarded because you decide to break the contract. That's not going to happen. What about custody? Yeah, when the kids are 7, custody is dad's. Neither parent is to stop them from visiting the other parent or the other parent's relatives. That's not okay. But custody is the dad's after age 7. They need mom. They also need dad. Nobody denies either one. But since they're dad's responsibility, they get under his roof. And what does this do? It makes it easier for her to marry another man. Oh, yeah, it does. Think about it. Okay, she got kids and, she's got a good relationship with the kids and they visit her and she visits him and that's all fine and dandy. But she wants to remarry. Okay, well, since the kids are visitors, that's okay. But they're not always up under her roof telling their stepdad, you ain't my daddy, because they don't want to listen. Because now stepdad gets to say, wait a minute, you're visiting your mom under my roof. Now, if you're going to sit up and talk to me like that under my roof because you're the one misbehaving, you still get to see mom, but she's going to be visiting you. You're not visiting her under my roof. Fit the guck out. And if she's tripping on you because you held up your rights, oh, really? Wait a minute. They the one that started this mess, not me. If you're going to demand that they have some right to sit up under my house and my roof and talk to me disrespectfully when they're the ones that are wrong. If you're going to protect that right that they don't have, you can get to stepping too. Because you found me ready to marry you as long as I'm treated fair and appreciatively. Wait until the next, now you got to start over again. Wait until the next guy comes in. All I'm saying is don't disrespect me in my own mother cuss word house. The rules of everybody. I am not going to mistreat you because that's the thing about it. In my religion, this prevention of which I'm telling you, stepdads aren't supposed to mistreat the stepkids. They're just not responsible for them. That ain't your job. It doesn't mean you mistreat them. It doesn't mean they disrespect you when you tolerate it. Neither of these things are actually inherent in the provision. You're allowed to put a stop to that mess. And you don't even have to be abusive to do it. It's just, you know what? They can't be under my roof. I'm not responsible for putting this roof over their head and putting the food in their belly, especially if they're going to disrespect me and the rules of my own house, the rules of everybody. If they disrespect you, mom, under my roof, it's their ass. They're going to be out. So we done with that. Now, I tell you what I will do. If they decide they want to visit you and they're not going to listen to another man under his own roof, then y'all can meet up and y'all can spend some time at a hotel as a vacation together. I got your room, your food. But the dad is responsible for their care and upkeep during a portion of that. That's what's fair. That's what's just. If they want to show you and me more respect under my roof, then they're welcome to come back. I'm not playing games with them like that. Nobody does that. These are boundaries. It's inherent in the prevention and it's protected under the legal system, so you're not out of bounds. And even if the culture goes against it, guess what? The legal system doesn't. So you could still say, well, screw the culture, because the actual legal system in this prevention is this. It's fair. Your culture's not fair, but this legal system is. You start enacting this and you put the male chastity inherent therein for both the practical benefits of this life and the moral reasons that it entails. And guess what winds up happening? Shannon Sharpe becomes a lot less, he becomes a lot rarer. This Shannon Sharpe we see having to fight this thing in a court of public opinion becomes a lot rarer. Brian Banks having to serve time for something he did not actually do, for a law he did not break, becomes rarer. Jonathan Major's situation, being chased down the street by a white woman or a white adjacent woman who dyes her hair blonde, and then still being depicted as the abuser and the aggressor. Well, you know what? That's rare, because frankly, part of the prevention is you don't willingly stay under a system that's going to do stuff like this to you anyway. And black folk are going to have to find other places to live as options. If you choose to stay stateside, you still are going to need a backup plan to where you can readily move to not face this stuff. Do you think that kind of thing is going to happen in Ghana? And speaking of which, one of the reasons why I say that we black folks need to start looking at this prevention is because, frankly, I've already seen you got, different nationalities of Africans right now beginning to reach out to each other. And that includes these black Caribbean nations and black Caribbean nationalities. It includes them. You know how many Jamaicans now are beginning to live on the continent and vice versa because they can? They can visit and enter each other's countries more easily now at this point with the passports. And it becomes a bit easier then to find employment if you have a particular skill set. And so you've got more and more that are opening businesses in each other's lands and territories. And so this is what's going on. And see, the thing is that a lot of times we hear certain rumors, but see, as I stated before, we don't like nuance. And that's one of the problems. Black folk in general don't like nuance. And we're going to have to stop that mess. But let me tell you something about this nuance and how important it gets. Here's the thing. Some of us say, well, wait a minute, Jet Black, here you go with that pro-black stuff. Don't you know that they're stealing black Americans' land in Ghana? You buy the land and then it's still not yours. That has an element of truth to it. Do you want to know what the whole picture is? The whole picture is that in the provinces outside of the capital's province, land ownership tends to be a much cleaner affair because it is left up to the administration of those provinces. But when you were in the capital, the interconnectivity between the tribes and their systems is already intricate enough. Then, on top of that, they are doing this to everybody. So if you own land in the capital or in the same province as the capital, Accra, and you are Ghanaian, you can wind up paying for the same plot of land multiple times. What is happening what you see happening to African Americans is the same thing that is happening to Ghanaians, to Bahamians, to Nigerians that are living there. It's the capital city, or it's the same province as the capital city. It's a major population center, and you have many different tribes that had equal access to that particular area before the Brits came. So the Brits then said, okay, well, we will allow the tribes to determine land ownership. So one particular ruler over his particular village may sit up and just say, I'm taking this land away from this family that belongs to my people to make room for these guests that came back from the diaspora. And so now the family is sitting up and saying in the courts, well, this guy took the land away from us and gave it to them. They didn't even come and steal the land. They just settled in it because they were given permission to do it. But the chief never gave us any other land to compensate us. It's a damn mess. And if you don't like nuance, at least have the decency to admit to yourself that this particular situation is so nuanced that you can't keep up with it like I have to do. I have to admit that. I'm not saying I have to keep up with it. I'm saying I have to admit that. I know. I talked to Ghanaians to find this out. They were going through the same thing. Consider Kumasi. Consider other countries in the motherland where you are allowed to own rights. You are allowed to own land. If so, it's equal. Consider that. In Tanzania, you can own land for 99 years, whether you're Tanzanian or a foreigner. It doesn't matter. Can you afford the land? That's the question. But if you can afford it, you get it for 99 years. It's in the family for 99 years. It's passed down for 99 years. After that, I think it reverts back. Something similar goes on in Medina if you're a foreigner. Now, that's only for foreigners. If you're a Saudi, you can own the land outright. But if you are a foreigner, you can have real estate for a 99-year lease. But they tell you up front it's 99 years. That's it. At the end of 99 years, whichever member of your family has it then, will not be able to rent it out anymore. They won't be able to just stay and occupy it without paying again. So your family has 99 years to stack up and save for the price of the next 99 years after that. At least they tell you that. And that's in the Medina area. So it's not outright ownership, but they tell you straight away. It's nuanced. And we don't like that. We read headlines, and I've done this at times mistakenly, and we just run off going off of that. Well, that's part of the thing about this prevention. This prevention says that you do not sit up here and just take news at face value without some sort of verification first. At least try to stand on some sort of evidence other than just the words of known liars. At the very least. Because you see, the black folks that have subscribed to this prevention of which I speak have already been cooperating with each other across nationalities and boundaries and been marrying and having kids. That's been done. Guess which black folks led other black folks in that? The ones that subscribe to this prevention that you think is not really going to prevent much. I've been telling you that it's a solution, and I meant that. But you know what? It's far more effective as a prevention. And I should have said that a long time ago. Because I can honestly say that black folks who really truly subscribe to this, not just on the surface wanting to have an Arab costume party where they pretend to be Arabs, not just that, because they tend to fall victim to this division against other black folks. They'll do that. Now, even the black folks who subscribe to it, but they don't want to be Arabs, tend to fall victim to this division against other black folks unnecessarily. Notice, I'm not saying delineation and distinction. That's normal. But outright division. They tend to fall victim to this enmity. Nowadays, it used to be if you had somebody that was black and he was Muslim and he didn't like no kind of other black folks, he wanted to be an Arab. It was pretty plain to see. Maybe he wanted to be a Persian or a Pakistani or something like that because in the interest of racial unity, he would be disunified from other black people. That used to be the case. Now it's like you got some, they don't like Indians, they don't like Arabs, they don't like Pakistanis, they don't like nobody else, but they also don't like no other black people. It's spread. It's an illness that is spread. And it's not because of what other black people have done. They just don't like anybody. You do have some of that. They don't read, though. They don't learn. But before it got to this point, the black folks that were the most interconnected across national boundaries, for the most part, were the ones that subscribed to this prevention of which I speak. That's what wound up being the case. That's important. It's been going on for decades. I'm not the only one that married a black woman of another nationality, and I'm really happy with her. I did that twice. And I was over the moon with both of them. I'm not the only one to do that. I'm not the first, and I won't be the last. It's been pretty common. Jamaicans and Somalis, Jamaicans and Ethiopians. You want to talk about Rastafarianism that links Jamaica to Ethiopia? Jamaicans and Ethiopians have been marrying and sticking together when both of them have subscribed to the prevention of which I speak. It's been going on a while. It's not a whole lot of numbers, but when it does happen, they pretty much not just split from each other. And if they do, they're not like, well, it's because I follow this culture and she follows that culture. It'll usually be because one will say, well, the real reason is that one of us did not apply the prevention very well when it came down to marriage or personality. It will be, they would say openly and obviously and honestly, okay, they would say, yeah, it's this. But for the most part, yeah, there've been all these, black love. You want to see black love, but there you go. We got it. It's with us. How's that for black love? It prevents a lot. It answers a lot. That's why I'm taking an hour to tell you this. And don't just take my word for it either. People that are new to this relatively will tell you that they can see how it actually works, especially if you stick with it for more than 8 months. You can ask Israel Young Lion. Shout out to the young brother. I already told you can ask Bill all of the features. You can ask C.L. Edwards. That's his name on his YouTube channel. You can ask these brothers about that. And from them, you'll find out more that you can ask. I've already mentioned them to you before. I'm not telling you this with no evidence, but in light of what Shannon Sharpe has been dealing with, and not only what he's had to deal with, which is not even in a criminal court, it's strictly civil, but in light of this, as well as the trial he has to face in the court of public opinion of the sisters, you add all of this together, and guess what happens, gentlemen? You start to see how easily preventable a lot of this stuff was. How easily preventable. Male chastity is going to be, as a matter of fact, it's probably more difficult than giving up smoking, giving up drinking, waking up early in the morning. And that's the part that many of you have actually done quite well at, enough to make me proud. If you can do that and you've shown that you can, all the other stuff is pretty easy. Most of you already believe there must be a God. Some of you might be so pessimistic and cynical that you think he doesn't care. But when you begin to remember that he actually gave people a choice, free will, so that they would prove the cases for or against themselves, then you realize, okay, he's not causing a lot of this. He let human beings decide if they would or not. That's part of the test. But he didn't cause a lot of this. He created. But the outcomes were picked by those he tested with free will, and they failed. And other outcomes that are positive were chosen by those whom he tested with free will, and they passed. But most of you believe that this maker, this creator, this designer, this ultimate commander, approver or disapprover exists. That part's easy for you. And some of you say, well, what about, you can talk this male chastity stuff, but come on, Jet Black, what about when you're 20 and you ain't got no money? Now what? You just supposed to just hold it in? Well, here's the funny thing about it. That's something that's man-made, believe it or not. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the general reality that most guys at that age are unmarried. That's man-made. And I don't even mean woman-made at that point. No, that's man-made, and that can be man unmade. The minute that fathers start to tell their daughters, listen, you are probably going to experience some years of poverty when you're a young adult, with or without a man. You probably gonna have to go through that. It could last a year, it may be 3. We don't really know. Whatever length of time I tell you it's gonna be different. Probably longer. So I'm not gonna say, but you face some years like that. It is better to face those years temporarily with a good man that you can love and that can love you back than it is to bypass that part of life with a man you just don't really care nothing about. Unless you know you're the kind of woman that really don't care nothing about no man anyway, and all that matters to you is that, and even then, you still might have to go through the years without it. When fathers start to tell their daughters that which is fair to sons-in-law, the way they tend to tell their sons that which is fair to somebody else's daughter and their daughter-in-law before they even meet her, before the son even knows who the hell she's going to be, then men have been fair. And that's a part of the prevention. That's just a part of general wisdom, actually. There is going to be a lack of money at some point in life, usually when you're young, man or woman. But if there's a man involved, somebody says, well, let's blame the man. That's where the problem comes in. I can remember once when my first wife and I were talking to the wife of an imam. He's an imam in the Atlanta area. This is a long time ago, so she won't even remember it. So if you were to ask, and he's Mateen Sabri. It's Imam Mateen Sabri. Well, my wife and I once had a conversation during Ramadan, I think, at Masjid al-Faruq. And we were talking, and she was telling us about the importance of being financially patient when you just ain't got it. And we were talking about how being financially patient is not necessarily going to work because it's not going to end. It's not going to go away. Like in this bad economy, it doesn't matter how patient I am. It's never going to stop. No one's going to ever pay me any more until I get more education. No one's going to give me a scholarship to get this greater education. I'm probably going to have to ask some people to lend me the money to go for it. And she said, listen, when Mateen and I first married, we had to stay in a basement, and it flooded when it rained. But the thing I understood is that this is not going to be forever. It was cold in the winter, but how many winters were we really going to be staying there? I had to remind myself, but it did work. I knew that there were people that were going through a lot worse and they were never going to live anywhere better. Some people were locked up in prison for crimes they'd never committed, and they were also in cells that flooded when it rained, where it got cold in the winter. And it was never going to be any different. Nothing was ever going to change. Never going to be there till they got sick and died. And I knew this was temporary. I just didn't know how long. And eventually he got a scholarship to go study in Saudi. And then he went and he studied in Saudi. And people that met him they saw him looking and trying to study and also trying to take care of me and be a good husband. And people just chipped in and helped out. And there were times we just get a knock on the door and we'd open the door and an envelope would fall out the door and there would just be tons of cash in it. And he didn't beg. We still don't know who was doing this, but we know it had to have been more than one because these envelopes were different colors. And I would say, thank God. And she pretty much sat up and she started to talk to me and my wife, but she was mainly telling my wife, these times do come, and if they come early and you pass that test, at least you got it over with, but you will go through it. And if you don't go through that, you're going to go through something else. And if it's not that, it's going to be something else. And whatever test is going to be just as bad to you. But it ain't forever. And you're not going to look back on that and say, I regret that I obeyed God. And she said, we didn't have to borrow. We didn't have to beg. We did have to be patient. We had to do our best to mitigate it and alleviate it and get out of it. But eventually the test was gone. And even now, we ain't rich, but we ain't worried about money either. She even said we got our place interest free. Our kids are healthy. They're educated too. And the reason I to myself didn't listen per se was because I was willing to learn from her experience, but I still stood up and said, the thing is, I just don't believe it's going to go away for us. I just don't believe this test is going to end as long as I'm patient. And I was wrong. You know, this test never ended for my ex. She may not be poor now. She's not poor, but she is overworked and she will always be. And she was just about to start looking for work here in the Middle East, and they stopped hiring nurses from the States. No joke. That was 7 years ago. She finally mentioned that about, no, 7 or 8. I'm not sure. 7 or 8 years ago, she finally mentioned that. I said, all right, I'll help look. I sent the message to a friend of mine that was here. And I said to him, listen, man, let me know whatever you find. He never found anything. Nobody wanted a nurse from the States. They were not interested. No. No nurses from the States. No. They were like, we don't want that. No, I mean, nobody was cursing me out for asking. It's just nobody would say to him, yeah, we'll take a nurse from the States. No more. Her test never vanished. Does she earn? Does she collect? Yep, but she works her butt to the bone. She's exhausted. It's not ending. I work and I work hard, but I'm not exhausted all the mother cuss word time. I got time to record this and I'm going into an hour and 8 minutes. Do I say this because I hate her? No, I say this because I want you guys to be able to learn and realize that when you subscribe to this prevention, you are subscribing to something that has actually been revealed by the one who made us, and he does not shortchange you. They're a test, but it doesn't shortchange you. He's not hustling his creation. He has no reason to do that. He made us. What does he need to hustle us for? If he ever needed anything from us, he could have saved it by simply not creating us in the first place. So what reason is there to really doubt him when you think about it? Now, start looking at this particular situation, what this has to do with how man-made it is that you got a bunch of young dudes that ain't married. If they're looking to be married, that's the time in their life when they think it will be better. And for many people, it is better to marry young, but you got to be raised for that. You got to be socialized for that. You got to actually be socialized to be mature when you're young. And that's possible. It's actually fairly easy. It depends on at what age you start to really, really, truly reward maturity in whoever you're raising. And what the rewards are, it really depends. But, when these fathers, these daughter daddies really start looking and saying, well, I'm going to love my daughter, but the way I'm going to love her the most and for the longest and with the best results is by teaching her that which is fair to her and to a son in law, not just what is great for her. The same way I would tell my son what is fair to him and to a daughter in law. Matter of fact, a lot of daughter dads will sit up and tell a son that which is great for somebody else's daughter, but not for the son. You got to be a man. You're right. He does. Not a machine, a man. You got to work like a dog. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Foot the work for. Because how much you going to pay a dog to work like one? As a matter of fact, one thing I can say about a dog is that no matter how hard they work to find their food, ain't nobody sitting up and saying to them, you going to stay busy between 8 and 4 just to make sure that you don't look comfortable. Nigga, what? Ain't nobody telling them that. As hard as they work to catch that next meal, when they catch it, they're allowed to eat, sleep, think about what they can do better to catch the next one, and get out there and catch the next meal, not just look busy so that somebody doesn't crack a whip over their head. You got to work like a dog. You're going to have to work like a machine. Yeah, sure. Am I going to get paid? Am I going to get paid like a celebrity? Yeah, I mean, it's worth it to work like a machine if you're going to be paid like a celebrity. And for some people, it ain't going to be worth it if it means they don't get to actually have a bond with the family they started. So, Manosphere Hall of Fame is going to like to hear me say this, and that's fine, but I'm going to say that part of this prevention means that you don't sit up here and you only favor your kids over the rights of somebody else's kids. It doesn't mean that. It means you're responsible to your kids, to do your part for your kids, but you are not sitting up here saying to them that other people's kids don't have any rights that they have to respect if they're going to look for something out these other people's kids. No, shuck that fit. Because a daddy-daughter that teaches his daughter this entitlement and then teaches the son to cater to a sense of entitlement in someone else's daughter is the same as one of these niggas saying to his daughter, girl, you hit these men, you hit these boys, you beat these boys up when you get to school. That's the right thing to do, baby. Yeah, you be violent, you beat these boys up. And then tell the son, no matter what a girl does to you, you never hit her. It's the same thing. There are some mothers who will sit up and they don't care who their sons beat up at school. There are mothers like that. Something happened, there was a fight involving your son. Is he okay? Yeah, but he bit the other kid. He injured him pretty bad. Oh, I thought he was hurt. Bitch, you just found out that your little son is a savage. Unless he didn't start the fight, your son is a damn savage. And you sitting up here with all this filthy, stank, funky attitude. There are mothers like that. And Arabs, when somebody has a double standard, Arabs have a saying, because this is common knowledge to them. They will say, he is like the mother who does not care who her son hits, only who hits him. In other words, the mother that does not demand that her son be fair. They have proverbs about these mothers. And my question to them is, who the hell gets these women pregnant? When I first heard this, I didn't realize that it was a proverb, but I did say to the man, well, who the hell is marrying these bitches and knocking them up? If a woman is that goddamn immature, why the hell can she get married? And he said, well, that's when he explained this as a saying. We don't literally mean that. It's a saying. But you know how there are moms that are like that. And I repeated the question. Okay, I get it. But we Muslim. Who is sitting up here marrying enough women like this to make them moms in the first place? But I get it that it's just a saying. So, part of the prevention is that you have the wisdom to teach other men, we don't knock these broads up like that. We got to be men. They got to be adult women. And that's one of the main things that is going to contribute to family stability if that's one of our goals. Where does the black man in the West, or anywhere for that matter, go from here in light of the recent political events and in light of the accusations that Shannon Sharpe has to face, which we can tell are a shakedown? You see, where we go from here is that first we learn the lesson. If you obey the laws of man, but you don't obey the laws of the creator of man, you are still going to be punished by woman and man. That's the first thing. And we must learn from that the next step is to go ahead and obey those higher laws and apply the prevention, which is a solution, but is still much more effective as a prevention. That's where we go from here. And part of that prevention is also going to be that we do not sit up here and look at other nationalities of black folk right after we get through shaking hands with Master's grandson. Yeah, we all American. And then look at other nationalities of black folk from whom we were forcibly separated, from whom who are also forcibly separated from us, who had no part to play because they weren't alive at the time of us being betrayed and being split up. And then say, y'all sold us. You're going to blame somebody that wasn't alive during the particular crime for the crime that a common ancestor of ours committed because they were traitors, not because they were African. And shake hands with the ones that sat up and benefited from this and still feels entitled to benefit at damn near no cost from what the hell happened to you and me and these cousins of ours from whom we were forcibly separated. If you want to sit up and look at that movie Black Panther, let me tell you what Black Panther actually missed. It was there for us to see, just like in that movie Adolescence, the right messages to get are actually there for us to see. The video does not, like for instance, the video does not show a weapon in the hands of Jamie Miller. It doesn't show that. The video shows him hitting her. You can't see a weapon. If it's there, it didn't show up on the video. Yeah, did you notice that in Adolescence? I saw it on the big screen. You know them big screen TVs, you can look and, I mean, it's so damn clear that you can look and see that the actor forgot to floss their bottom teeth before they started filming. You know, the ones that are so clear that when the actor starts laughing, you can look on their tongue and you can see, oh, that he had Kung Pao shrimp for lunch. I can smell it on his breath. Oh, he got dandruff. He need to wash his hair with some real shampoo before they start filming. He got it on his suit. You know, one of them type screens. Yeah, I saw it on that. And there it was, plain as day. Yeah, he did hit her when she knocked him down, but he didn't reach in his pockets for nothing. He just punched her. According to the camera. That's what I'm saying. These messages that have the right moral message in them, they're actually there. That's what makes me think sometimes these movie makers are trying to hide positive moral messages in these movies. Well, guess what? When Killmonger finally came along and he met King T'Challa, his cousin, he showed the branding on the inside of his lip, spoke in the Wakandan language and said, hey, said, I am Ndjaka, I am Njobu, the son of Ndjaga. Hey, auntie. When he came along and said that, explained that he was not some illegal immigrant that just brought a dead body to the Wakandan border, but that he was actually and in truth a Wakandan himself who was also African American. He was sitting up and he was saying in a nutshell, I'm not here because I hate you because you're African. I am here because people are being oppressed everywhere in Africa and everywhere else. And you sat here with the solution to this and you did not a mother cuss word thing. And you even killed my father for trying to violate that rule you had, which you should have never had. I mean, you didn't kill him, but your dad did. Your dad killed my dad, and you're carrying on your dad's mistake. See, before Killmonger wanted the throne, he wanted to merely convince the one who sat on the throne to let other oppressed people be able to take out the worst oppressors on the planet. I'm the king of Wakanda, not of the world. Okay, fine, but you ain't going to help out. You're not going to help people who could have been allies. While the worst enemies turn other people into worse enemies, neutral parties become enemies. That's what that was about. That was a hidden message underneath. Killmonger was sitting up and he was saying, look, Killmonger was pretty much saying, people don't have to just be oppressed and sit there and tolerate it and take it. That's not a requirement. This is something you think, but it's not a requirement. It's not even constructive. It doesn't serve some higher purpose. It's not that. It never was that. You're good, but you sitting up here hiding your standard of living and your progress, not only from massa, but you're even hiding it from your neighbors so that they don't know how well you're doing. Meanwhile, everybody but you all suffers because they black, and your response to this is to pretend like you're suffering just as much as everybody else without even making a plan to alleviate the suffering of other people just because they black. Or rather, because the oppressors are white. It wasn't about FBA just hates Africans and Africans just hate FBA. It wasn't really about that. Wasn't that wasn't about that. And a lot of this delineation that became unnecessary division began to be talked about at the same time as that movie came out. The deeper message in there, in a nutshell, was, no, we're going to have to cooperate against these common oppressors. We're going to have to cooperate against them. Because believe you me, all it takes is for the illusion, the veil to fall, and somebody finds out how well you're really doing in Wakanda. All it takes is a wrong Wakandan citizen to go abroad to study and leak that information. That's all the hell it's really going to take. In order for the rest of the world to then turn around and converge on Wakanda. And what the hell happened? Because of what Wakanda could do but was not willing to do later on in the sequel, the Mayan Atlanteans showed up and said, oh, yeah, we had to deal with this. This is what we had to face because you all had solutions that wouldn't help. You know what? We had to hide underwater. So since we had to hide underwater because of what the hell it is that the Spaniards did, then we coming for you. You see, people didn't stop to think about this. I didn't like the ending of the second one, but people didn't stop to think about this. How did Namor's mother hear rumors of a place like Wakanda a long time ago? How was that the case? That would suggest a connection in between the continents, the New World and our home continent. Well, that was being hinted at in the movie because that did happen. So this meant that somebody from the continent knew of a place where you could not easily oppress the people because of a gift in the form of a technology that they had. I met a Mayan man from Guatemala who told me that it was a secret how it was that they had some of the technology to build some of the features into the pyramids that they knew how to build. It wasn't the existence of pyramids that was really strange, because in all honesty, back then in engineering, if you don't use metal infrastructure inside of the structure of a stone building, if you don't do that, then you're going to have to build a pyramid. Because each floor, each level must weigh less than the level beneath it in order for the structure to stand. That's just a basic feature of construction. But there were certain features of the pyramid that coincided with the pyramids of ancient Egypt, even though they were used for two different purposes. Some of the technology was in fact shared. How the heck did that reach across the Atlantic? The Guatemalan man I met a long time ago told me that some of the elders still knew these secrets. And I said, yeah, because there were people from another civilization that shared it, and that civilization was here on Earth. And he told me they won't talk about it. Now, this is after he said he knew what the secret was. And then he told me they won't talk about it. I'm like, oh, so I just told you what it is. And your answer is the elders won't discuss it. Yeah, of course they won't discuss it. You didn't say it was something else because you knew damn well I would have caught you. Oh, that's not all. 1995, my family took a trip to Cancun. We went to Chichen Itza, not too far away, saw those pyramids. And there was, in the gift shop, there was a pyramid built in the Egyptian style. It was not a step pyramid like the ones of the Americas. My dad turned to the man and asked that man in Spanish, listen, why is this being sold here? And the man started quoting a price. And my father said, before we talk price, just tell me why this pyramid is being sold here. This is a little souvenir pyramid. My dad was merely saying, this is not like those pyramids. Well, just tell me what the connection is and I'll talk about a price with you. The man went down in price. My dad said, are you listening to me? You know what? Never mind. My dad walked out, said, come on, son, I'm done. And the man went down in price, and I turned to the man in Spanish and told him, you don't understand, or you're pretending not to understand. He's asking you another question before we discuss the price. And then I whispered to the man and I said, if you told the truth, this might have been worth more than what you're selling it for. But you don't listen, or you pretended not to. And don't say it's because of our accent. And the man was like, well, how much do you want to pay? And I told the man, okay, you know what? My dad was like, come on, son. I said, trust me, Dad, I'm coming. And I turned to the man and I said, I'm obeying him and I'm not obeying you. These are relatives of ours. See, at this point, I had learned that the Dogon were actually descendants of the ancient Egyptians. That's one of the connections between our ancestors and the ancient Egyptians. It's a tenuous connection. It's not like our only ancestors were ancient Kemetic peoples. No, but we are related to them. They form a part of our ancestry indirectly. But I just told the man, listen, I didn't say our ancestors. I said, look, we're related genetically to the people that built these, not those. And I pointed outside. And I told the man, for us to buy this and say that we bought it in Mexico right then and there has a great historical significance. That's why my dad asked you the question, but you screwed up. And frankly, I'm starting to wonder. And I heard my dad say, son, the bus. And I just interrupted the conversation. I left that man. As much as I can remember, I may have said something else and I can't recall. I'm doing good to remember this much after all these years. But the point is, in a nutshell, and it was a quicker conversation than how I could explain it to you now, because I could speak Spanish much more quickly back then. But I was telling this man in a nutshell, you screwed up. There's a connection. We have a reason for this, but you only price. Okay, let me go down low on the price. Excuse me, can we ask you this question and then talk about a price? You could have made more money. And this is what messed it up. Later on, this man from Guatemala told me that in a nutshell, the elders knew. And it wasn't just the elders who knew. You know, he said there were rumors that other regular Maya people here, but the elders know what it is. But they won't say. They won't confirm a lot of times for regular people. I was like, well, do you know? He said, yeah, I know. And then later he told me the elders won't talk about it. After I said, yeah, because another civilization showed y'all something. So y'all built a similar structure for a different reason. Make a long story short, this was hinted at in the sequel to the Black Panther movie, Wakanda Forever. It's just a movie, but the messages that they put in these things do have a significance if you already read the history. This prevention of which I'm speaking was indirectly hinted at in the first Black Panther movie, and then more so in the second. And what is that? Very simply put, it's something that human beings already know to be the case in the first place. Oppression is wrong no matter who the hell commits it, and no matter against whom it is committed. And we know this instinctively. But applying the prevention that I'm talking about means that you become very difficult to oppress, and you become very expensive to oppress. And not only that, but when you're that expensive to oppress, you're now in a position to tell oppressors, you're not going to oppress not only me, you're not doing that to anybody I know about. Not because I just love them or hate them for that matter, and they probably don't love us, but because that's just wrong. That's just so wrong, it's intolerable. The prevention means that instead of getting caught up in games of oppression Olympics, trying to compare stories about who's had it the worst, you actually make oppression too expensive a venture in which to engage. The cost automatically outweighs any gains that somebody might imagine from committing it. Oh, land? You're going to do this for land? What you going to do when that land has no value? What are you going to do when the only way that land could have value is if the soil is fertilized with your corpses, because it ain't going to be just ours alone? That means you're going to be plant food before the land has the value for what you started in the first place. Because you ain't going to press us to get it. You could have come here nicely and shared it, Brother Maka. What happens then? See, that's one of the ultimate aims of this particular prevention. Now, some of us might say, man, F everybody else. Well, right now, you may not have a choice but to say that. But when you have a choice later on, your natural disposition is going to be to say, no, that's wrong. Because if it ain't us today, it'll be us tomorrow. And I'm going to leave with this because I've already gone on for almost an hour and 35 minutes. I'm going to leave with this. When it comes down to unity, people of a default disposition don't find a reason to unite based on it because it's a default. Honest business owners are operating on a default, stating the facts. What else is there to state by default? I mean, you got to create a lie, but what else is there to state by default other than the facts? So they're operating on a default. So they don't think, okay, well, because I'm an honest business owner and he's an honest business owner, we need to unite. That idea does not come about until a long time later. It takes for all the business owners or the bulk of the business owners in a particular area to be corrupt before the honest ones start thinking, not only do we need to unite, but that's going to be very difficult because we're just surrounded by the crooked and they're making all the money because they crooked. So we're going to have to damn near back each other up physically, because the crooked are going to come to us and start trying to fight us when people realize we're telling the truth and we get more business by volume. That's what it takes for the righteous, those who are on the right path, to unite. You ever stop and think about that? What is the default race of human beings? Ours. Other races are descendant races. They're not corrupted. It's not that. Except in a specific context of high UV radiation, they're not corrupted. And even then, it's not always the case. But to make a long story short, what I'm getting at here is that there's a reason why the further from us genetically or in appearance that people are, either genotypically or phenotypically, the further from us they are, the more of a unity they feel against us. because they're not the default. So they tell themselves that they're the default, but they're not. They might think that somehow they're corrupted on a subconscious level, even though we know it's just a difference. It's fine. But that's just one minor example. See, in order for this prevention to work, you have to understand that much of what you are trying to prevent is caused by someone that is invisible, but very real. And I've talked about that before. I don't just mean the Lord, but I'm talking about someone that wants to push us from and ultimately against this Lord and creator and maker and designer and ruler. That's someone invisible to us. Very real, but invisible to us. That is why it is that humanity finds itself inspired to unite against its default race. But you can take this race and this racial dichotomy I mentioned, and you can also apply this in general to morality. Now, again, let's look at morality, as I stated, with business owners, just honest people in general. What happens? Honest people don't feel like they need to unite just strictly on that basis because they're just being honest. But the corrupt who lie start to feel like, well, we need to watch each other's backs. We need to watch out for each other so that we can cover each other's tracks, so that we could take advantage of whoever lacks. Making it easier for us to stack without the labor that's involved, without the patience that it might take. So the wicked start to look out for each other once they can recognize each other. And so that's why it is that when people are lazy, but they cheat to get what they want instead of working for it, they start to recognize laziness in other people. They look for people that are lazy but still seem to have a lot. The trappings of success. They're looking for that. So when they find someone that's not really that hard working, but he's got a lot of stuff, they still might double check, well, is this person really just like me? Is he cutting corners to get things done? And then when they recognize each other, they start doing what? Start uniting. And then when one of them is in an HR position, or he's in a management position, and he gets job candidates he must interview, he starts to look and see, okay, well, I interviewed this job candidate. He's serious. I can tell he's about his stuff because this man he's not afraid to do the work it takes to get the result. If the result's not worth it, he won't do the work. But if he sees the result as worth it, he will do the work. I'll cheat. I'll cut corners. I'm not going to do the work, but I'll cheat and cut corners. This man's not like that. Okay, you know what? Wait a minute. This guy has, but he's lazy. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me bring this guy in because he ain't going to make me look bad. This way, both of us will be able to justify the salary that we get for the work that we don't do. He can point and say, well, look at him. I can point and say, well, look at him. This little bit of work is worth this big of a salary. That's the market value of it. Pay up and don't ask me to do any more. We can corrupt the entire market, the entire labor market, if that's the case, because we're the ones holding the keys to the salaries. Therefore, we can reward the very laziness that we want rewarded in the first mother cuss word place instead of the industry and the honesty. The wicked and the corrupt have more of an incentive to unite against the honest than what they think they do, I should say. They feel more of an incentive to unite against the honest than the honest are aware of they have to unite against the corrupt and the wicked. That's the truth of the matter. In reality, it is those of the default disposition, the honest, the straightforward. I'm not even going to say necessarily the hardworking or the lazy, because the default for that is you work hard for that which is worth it, which pays even more. You're lazy if it's just not worth it to be hard. That's the default. But the people that at least say, okay, well, I can see the reward in this, so I work for it honestly instead of trying to cheat. Those guys don't really see the incentive that they have to unite against the lazy and the cheaters, the corrupt. Some people are not even really that lazy, but they're still cheaters because they're just kind of lazy. Some of them will say, okay, look, you know what? I'm going to work hard, but I'm still going to cheat to get more to make it worth what I'm doing. Instead of simply saying, if people are asking everybody to do this much in exchange for this little and none of us does it, then they'll stop asking that because it would be unrealistic. They're not thinking long term. But what the last point I was trying to make before closing out is that, frankly, you have to understand that when you are going to be righteous and you are applying this prevention, you are supposed to then be united against those who want to be corrupt and dishonest, lazy, cheating bastards. And that in this prevention, it actually is encoded that you are supposed to be on each other's side, mainly against those who are unrighteous and corrupt, even if they claim and subscribe to the same prevention. That you will cooperate with each other to put a stop to their efforts where you know them. This is understood. This is in the prevention. It's written down and encoded. Because when you find that people are honest, upright, and they're willing to cooperate against what is wrong, you then realize that your opposition appears to you to be united. You think they're together, but in actuality, then it becomes clear that their hearts are divided. Because remember, they're in this for themselves. Their unity is still based on a selfish interest. It's just at a very base level, so it takes longer for that to no longer work in their interest anymore, but it's laziness, corruption, cheating, getting without earning. That defines their unity. And when you're unified against that particular effort, now all of a sudden they got to actually work hard to avoid working hard. The work that it takes to avoid working is more than the work they were trying to avoid. Cheating? Man, I've had several students admit that they would cheat, but the problem is that cheating is harder than studying. I've had students admit this before. Some of them have said, yeah, I did it back in middle school. But in my high school, it became difficult. It became harder every year. Now cheating's harder than studying. So it's better to just study. I've had some admit that. They're not that common, but they're there. They're increasing all the time. Now, before, the cheaters used to be unified. The cheaters were so unified that students who didn't cheat by the students who didn't cheat by stealing answers or stealthing answers to themselves would participate by giving answers, and then they would turn around and cover up for the students that were actually real hardcore cheaters. Well, you got to go easy on him. He didn't understand pre-calculus, and now he's in calculus. Wait a minute, what you mean I got to go easy on him? He's struggling pre-cal. What is this nigga doing in calculus if he couldn't pass pre-cal? You just told me this nigga cheated. Now you want me to go easy on him because he's in over his head. The nigga cheated. No, I'm not going to let this nigga go. Well, I'm teaching level 4 English or advanced English. Well, doctor, you got to go easy on him. He doesn't speak English. What the hell is this nigga doing in my advanced class or my level 4 class if he doesn't speak level 1 English? This nigga cheated in levels 1, 2, and 3 to get to level 4. Now the nigga's cheating again. You tell me let him slide. Shuck that fit. So he can get the same results as you. You studied, he cheated. You gave this nigga answers for free. And now you telling me to go easy on him. Screw both of you. You both cheated. You're both about to repeat. What do you think this nigga's going to do if he's interviewing you for a job? He knows you studied. You just gave in to peer pressure. He's going to look at you and say, I'm not hiring this nigga. He's going to perform very well, but he's also weak when it comes to peer pressure. I was wrong. He was right in the beginning. And this nigga gave me answers for free. I'm not going to hire him because he's going to make me look bad. I'm going to go and hire this other no good rat bastard cheater over here, because he's a real Bedouin. Or he's a real Arab, however they define it. Sometimes I just call him nigribs. He's a real nigrib. I'm going to hire him. This way, neither one of us looks really bad. I've had students that I've taught in the States and here, and they decide, you know what, none of us is going to do the work, because if none of us does the work, he has to grade on a curve. Someone has to pass. So since none of us did anything, all of us got to pass. No, shuck that fit. No, nigga, you failed. And you know what? I can't teach in the States anymore because of that. I didn't lose a license. I just let it expire. But I never got caught up in a cheating scandal because I didn't cheat. I didn't give grades for free. I didn't cheat and change answers for any students. I didn't do any of that stuff, but I still can't teach in the States. It's almost like I did these things. But guess what? The point I'm making is that these students were united in their laziness. And it happened last semester. Wasn't all the students that said none of us is going to do the work, but what did happen is that the worst of them said none of us is going to do anything, and the better students fell victim to their lazy instinct and said, well, we'll do the work, but we're not going to do all of it. We just have to do more than these no good nigribs over here. If we just do better than the nigribs over here, we'll pass. Well, it wasn't up to me to mark anything, so they were marked objectively, so nobody passed. Two of them wound up passing by the skin of their teeth. And that was after a decision was made above my head. They can go because they were so close. They still failed the exit exam. Still had to go back and repeat the advanced level in another class. They still had to. But the section to which they belonged, even though these two were not a part of that, the section to which they belonged had reached an agreement. And the worst students thought that the slightly better students were in on the agreement because they weren't willing to unify against the worst students and say, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to actually nitpick our English to pick out the mistakes and improve before we try to go into the regular university classes. Their issue was that they still followed instead of uniting against the worst. But when you actually accept this prevention of mine, which my students have claimed to be born into, well, into which they were actually born, my former students and my current, all of them for the last 11 years have been born into this solution, but they have not necessarily applied it when it comes to their learning and their education and their skill set. If the ones that did not effectively apply this, let the nigribs influence them instead of them standing against the nigribs and saying, no, you need to be Darfur, which is their way of saying nerd. No, you need to be Darfur in the academic context. Maybe not in the whole of your life all the time, of course, but when it comes to academics, that's the time to be Darfur. Yes, exactly what you nigribs look down on being is what you need to be in an academic context. You want to pass a foreign language class. Nigga, fix your grammar. He told you, you suck at grammar, you suck at spelling and grammar. Your pronunciation is so bad that nobody knows what you mean. So your grammar, we don't know how bad your grammar is. He told you this. You go over there and fix your pronunciation. If it means you got to imitate some British or Australian guy on YouTube, damn it, go do it. You suck at grammar. That means you need to nitpick how to put things in a proper order. Go do it. You suck at spelling. Nigga, go through a dictionary for the words that you think you know how to spell and find out which ones you really don't, and then write them down multiple times correctly. Nitpick, dummy. You need to be Darfur about these things. This was what my better students did not do, even though it is in the prevention into which they were born. It's written there, but they did not apply it. And what I'm saying to you is that the way we go forward as black men, in light of what Shay has to face and all this other stuff, is that we understand now. Look at Shay in the context of all these other lessons we've learned. Brian Banks, Jonathan Majors, Shay. I think Michael Irvin too. Many others whose names I've forgotten because the stories are getting just too mother cuss word common to tell. Who the hell else? I forgot. Who did Joy Taylor accuse? I forgot because the names are starting to run together in my head. But they're all getting these accusations. It's making me start to wonder if R. Kelly really did anything. I mean, I damn near have to remind myself, no, he was on videotape and everybody that saw it told me it was him. I didn't see it, but everyone that saw it said, no, it was him. And I got to sit up here and wonder about cases that are so-called proven. I mean, hell, look at Cosby. The only charge they could stick is him touching one skinny dude's breast. I call her a skinny dude because I really don't think that her frame would have allowed her to call attention to her breast for him to touch. And that's what he went in for. Stop and think about that. He went in for that. All the other charges they couldn't prove. But, you know, you have at the federal level, you have enhanced sentencing. So if you can throw a bunch of charges at a defendant and then convict him on one, they could be sentenced for the bulk of them. This was first utilized against Muslims that were being charged with certain T-word activities. So they could be over sentenced for that for which they would be convicted, and it was legal. So they'd be like, well, dang, I mean, if I can fight all these charges and still lose one, the sentence is the same. Well, goodness gracious. That's why so many were pleading guilty when they weren't. I was Muslim at the time this was happening. None of us were stupid enough to sit up here and involve we weren't stupid enough to plan anything, and we weren't dumb enough to involve anybody else in the plans. Because somebody didn't have to snitch in order for you to be found out. If you talked online, on the phone, if you talked near a masjid or anything like that, it was bugged. It would take them about a week or two to listen to the audios. And then later on, they would go back and say, well, let's see who comes in and out of here, and the voice matches that voice right there. Let's see what happens. See who we can find. There was a guy in the West End Muslim community. I don't know his name, but he was in the West End neighborhood. And, you know, there's plenty of Muslims there on certain streets. This man had actually escaped from a prison in Ohio decades before. He said the J word within a few feet of the mosque. It was bugged. And later on, some people came, and it was funny because they were able to match his voice with his identity. So all they had to do was go in, find out because apparently they had audio of him from back when he was incarcerated in Ohio. So they showed up there somehow, waited until he came along. The images matched. They picked him up. All they had to do was just extradite him back to Ohio to serve a prison sentence he never finished serving. And I think it's a life sentence. That's what somebody told me from the West End. This guy was not, the one that told me is not a liar. He could get facts wrong by mistake, but one thing I would say is that this man was not a liar. I know the man that told me about this. He was not a liar. And he even knew how you could tell that Jamil Alameen is innocent, but he couldn't prove it. He knew, but he couldn't prove it. I don't know where he is now. Haven't seen him since I left the United States. In any case, I got to tell you that that last message I wanted to close out with is the importance of actually applying the prevention to the level that you are going to be united against corruption with other people that you know to be honest and upright. Now, it doesn't mean that you always are walking around just taking everybody at face value. But what I mean is that when you know somebody else is upright and honest, that you are willing to cooperate with them to prevent other people that are lazy and corrupt from getting the same rewards in life as those that are honest and upright and do the job. That is going to be very important. This means even to the extent that since we're trying to work on how to have family stable lives as black men somewhere on the planet, that we start even looking at these simp daughter daddies and start even saying to each other, look, we are not against dads loving their daughters. That comes with the territory. You must. But we are not going to raise daughters at the expense of our sons or each other's sons' well-being, just like we would not raise the sons at the expense of somebody's daughter's well-being. If raising a son to be a man necessitates that he does not leave a trail of broken hearts, or even two broken hearts, or just an unsuccessful marriage, then damn it, we're going to start teaching our daughters how to be fair to somebody else's son as our potential son-in-law as well. That's just fair. We start doing this. And when we catch some of these dads like, man, look, I don't care. I love my daughter. I'm not going to teach her. Okay, nigga, you know what? We're done. What you mean? Look, I'm telling every other father what you said, and nobody's son is coming to your door. So you're going to act like that? Your daughter's going to have to go and get her husband, with or without your help, because ain't nobody going to come knocking on your door when you talking like this. My daughter's a little princess that doesn't deserve to ever have a day of hardship in her life. Nigga, you stupid. Okay, well, maybe life's hard, but why should it be hard if she has a husband? Nigga, because God tests husbands. That's why. That's the whole point. He put us here to worship him, but part of the worship means that he tests us with both ease and hardship. You sitting up and saying the hardship better never come while she has a husband. Well, of course the husband will do what he can to help if he's raised right, but that does not mean he's going to be able to shield her from every single trial and tribulation. He may not be able to shield her from a third of them. And if you raise her wrong, and then you pass away, and then she is nothing but a burden to her husband, your son-in-law, and then he passes away, one of the ways that God would punish you in the grave is that he would only open the window for you to see what's going on in her life when it's something bad, just to vex you. She'll go through joy and pain anyway, but when her life gets harder and she goes through more hardship after that point, yes, you will be informed while you're in the grave of the hardship through which she goes, because you played a part in it, dummy. So this prevention is going to be very important that we apply as best we possibly can. If you make an honest mistake, you can expect mercy. But this halfway application that a lot of us like to do when we get tired of certain things ain't going to work. Now, we all might do it. We're all going to apply things incompletely because we're human. But to do it as an honest mistake is vastly different from doing it because I just don't feel like really applying this. It's different when you don't know about it or you don't know how, or the environment does not allow it and there's no particular way. But some of us just get tired and say, you know what, I'm not going to abide by these rules right now. Ninja, don't expect any mercy. Learn it bit by bit. Of course, learn it bit by bit. Bilal is a good start on the features. He's a good start for this. When it comes down to applying this to black family life, Black Guru is actually a good reference point for how to not misapply the sexual parts of this prevention. Because what he's telling you in a nutshell, what Black Guru was saying in a nutshell is you're going to have to exercise male chastity. You can't be out here just because you a dude digging out one, digging out another, because every time you do, there will be a consequence. You may say, well, the law of the land allows this, even though God don't like it. And guess what? The law of the land will turn around and punish you for what God did not want you to do. Even if it's the civil law and not the criminal law. Ask Shannon Sharpe. What did he fornicated? Trust you me. The parts of the punishment that are coming from on high, or the withdrawal of the protection that is coming from on high, is not because she's 20. It's not because she's cute. It's not because she's off white or adjacent white. It's not because of that. It's not because her last name is Zuniga instead of Jenkins. It's not that. It's because he dropped his pants to fornicate. And then didn't even hide the stuff. He didn't publicize it, but he didn't hide it. It's because he dropped his pants for that. Her punishment is probably not going to come until much later on. Right now, he was the only one that had something to lose out of this, and he gave away something valuable entirely. He gave it away entirely too cheaply because he didn't think it was valuable. Black Guru will tell you guard your seat. I'm telling you guard your seat and your private parts and your chastity. That's what I'm saying to you. Most of these women, they'll sit up and act like, well, it's not really that valuable. I mean, it's not like we come all the time anyway. Most of the time, that has to do with two things. Number one, the mental blocks in their own mind. And then number two, the space of time in between the sexual encounters for men. That's what that has to do with. It has to do with that. Wives that don't skeet enough don't understand. Yeah, you're supposed to be doing this multiple times a week. You're supposed to get started when he's still relatively empty from the last one. You're trying to wait until the cup is full now, and then you want a marathon. It doesn't work that way. Dummy, the last time you drained his testes was last Sunday. It's Thursday now. He's in his 20s or 30s. You want a marathon. If the last time was Sunday, you should have gone back Monday or Tuesday for the marathon. Then you could come back Thursday for another marathon. You boop it stitch. That's part of the prevention, by the way. People didn't understand that too. But yeah, a lot of the stuff is covered. That's what I'm saying is. But you can start step by step. That's fine. You ain't going to get it all overnight. Nobody does, but you start step by step. The one that revealed the prevention knows if you are just slacking or if you're just going step by step, a step at a time, and he will respond accordingly. You aren't punished for doing what you could do, at least not by him. Now, another creation may come along and try to do that, but he don't punish you for doing the best you could. And that's what happens. It ain't him. I'm telling you, you're not going to regret that. That's not what happens. You can ask Israel, young lion, if you regret it. Ask him if he regrets it. He'll tell you that there have been times it's been hard. There have been times it's been easy. Both of them have happened. Ask him if he regrets it. No, he doesn't regret it. He has witnessed the maker and the creator help him dodge bullets. I'm not going to go too far into that. It ain't my business to do it. But I'm simply saying that he will tell you that he does not regret it. He will tell you that he has been protected. And he can see that from which he was being protected at the time. He's seen it. Being allowed to dodge a bullet. And you're actually able to sit back, lean like on the Matrix and look at that bullet go past where your head just was. That's what it's like when you get that protection. It's like that. And that's what I want you guys to understand. You don't regret this sort of thing, and you do get to sidestep a lot of this stuff. And if you are practicing this and you still face what Jonathan Majors faced, if you still face what Brian Banks faced, if you still face what Shannon Sharpe faced, and you will walk in this path, then they're going to look so damn stupid and ridiculous in the end that the ones who tried to go after you when you walked that path of the prevention and still tried to punish you like you didn't they're going to be too embarrassed and shamefaced to ever try something like that again. How they going to sit up here and try to pin a baby on you that ain't yours and you never walked that path of unchastity? The only way they could do that is if they're married to you and they wouldn't have somebody else's baby. And while some states would say, nope, that's your child, trust you me. Trust you me. While some states might turn around and say that. You don't have to live in those states. Part of the prevention is you don't stay there in an environment that's going to do that. Part of the prevention is that if that's what the law is where you live, you don't tie the knot in front of that state government. You marry according to your faith tradition, which in our case would be in the masjid with a marriage contract and the witnesses and hawali and the dowry. And then when she decides that she wants to stick you for support and it ain't your baby, and you find out it ain't your baby, court's going to say, well, if the DNA test doesn't match up, then why should he pay? Well, under state law, marriages, yeah, wait a minute. Did y'all marry in front of the state? No, it doesn't count. Masjid marriage don't count. That's why a lot of masajid are now under pressure to tell you to go to the courthouse. Yeah, they've been pressured to do that. That's why you may decide, you know what, I'm not even going to go to the masjid and do it. Because it doesn't take an imam. That's where it normally happens and with the imam, but it doesn't take one. It takes the witnesses, her male relative or guardian, a dowry, and then somewhere there's a contract writing this down. That's what it takes. Now y'all married. That which was forbidden before is now required. Have fun. Just don't email the videotape to us or anything like that. We don't want to see that. These things are encoded. The protection is there. Now, I'm taking a major risk telling you something like this at a time like this with an administration as aggressive as the administration currently is. I'm taking a risk. I did it a long time ago when you know who was president. Now, I'm not talking about Obama. I did it after he became president, but not as much. And I'm doing it again because that's what's best for you. That's why. I want you guys to take this, and if you can't believe in what I'm saying, then take as much benefit out of it as you can. I'm not going to get anything in Cash App because of that. The reward I'm going to get is not going to be anything that comes out of you. And yes, when I'm finally in that grave, I want as much in my favor as I could possibly get. Anybody in their right mind would. And so it's in my best interest that you have taken this and benefited in your life as much from it as you possibly can, so that whatever benefits you do derive can count in my favor and my position is better, because once in that grave, I can't come out to change it. Nobody can. So I do have a selfish interest in what I'm telling you, but it is not something that's going to cost you. You take it, we both benefit, we both win. You take bits and pieces of it, then we both benefit and we both win proportional to the bits and pieces that you did take. But you're really going to win if you take the whole thing, whole kit and caboodle, lock, stock, and barrel, bit by bit, but lock, stock, and barrel. If you drink the whole prevention, you may sip, take it in gulps one after the other, but you empty that whole cup into your system. That's where you're going to really win. And if you win, then, well, God, like I said, God does not punish righteous deeds. He does not punish me for doing the best I can. He does not hustle his creation. He has no need to. If he needed anything out of us, he could have saved, he could have simply not created us and saved whatever he gave to us and provided to us in order for him to create us. Because when he creates, he provides for the creation. If he was going, he has no need. That's what I'm getting at. We're right back to he has no need to hustle his creation. So if you take this and you drain this cup into your system, lock, stock, and barrel, the whole thing, even if it's sip after sip, gulp after gulp, then he's not going to cheat me out of my portion for this. And you lose nothing. You just gain. I'm telling you, I want what is better for you. And I want you to have a particular mindset of software programming that not only allows you to have a stable family life if you can start a family, but also allows for us to be able to pass that on to our children and grandkids so that it becomes sustainable generation after generation. It would have been nice if the moms could have been from the same origin as us for those of us that have that preference. That would have been nice. But many of us are not going to be able to do that. And it ain't your fault. God's not going to punish you for that. Contrary to what Omar Ungawa, I used to be Muslim, says, God's not going to punish you because you found your better future with that lady from Kazakhstan, or because she comes from some other origin. It's not going to happen. And, you know, there are a few that are already working on this as best they can, but they're not that many. And you never know what kind of help you might wind up being to such a person. Farouk Hunter of Atlanta, Georgia, started Freedom Nation. He's now busy in Kazakhstan. That man's always on the go. He's busy in Kazakhstan now. I can't even remember what business is he's building, but it's there. He has Kazakh in-laws at this point. I bet you his family situation is hella stable, not only for him, but also for his children and his in-laws through the marriages of his children, and then for the grandchildren that are resulting from this. Oh, it's stable. And he's still pretty young and active. It is stable. That man took what his dad, Imam Abdul Karim Hunter of Masjid Jami in Atlanta on Broad Street, taught him. He took it and he put it in practice. May Allah have mercy on Imam Abdul Karim. That man preached truth, and I was worried for him because I knew at that point that the government was snatching. The wiser you were behind the pulpit, the sooner the government got to work framing you. I think they just let him alone because he got a terminal diagnosis. And it was terminal. He passed away. I don't think they had time to get him. I'm sure they were going to try it at some point. They did it to Imam Jamil Alameen. But Imam Abdul Karim's son, Farouk Hunter, is now, you know what, I'll let you look him up. freedomnation.me is the server's name. He's on Facebook. This worked for him. He was born into the prevention, and this has worked for him. He does not have regrets about this. And as you talk about building a legacy, well, he's doing it materially and spiritually and psychologically. He has done and succeeded at what I tried to do and failed for my kids. With that being said, thank you for being patient with me on this almost 2.5-hour jet black flight. I mean that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. I mean that. Thank you. I hope that what I've said is a benefit. And I mean benefit to you in this life and in the next. With that being said, black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual non-select male power because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction of judgment day. And now you know why I've been saying that all these years. Thank you for flying with us here on Jet Black Air, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. And now you know what I mean when I say until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.